welcome back to Just Another Stitch. For those that don't know me, my name is Connie, and today we're going to be making this broken ribbed stitch headband. So let's get started on what supplies you will need. Okay, you will need 4 weighted yarn. And I'm using Yarn Bee's Mini Maker Hot Pink. And there are 65 yards in this skein. And it's 4 weighted. And this is what I have left over from the skein I use. So you won't even use a whole skein. But any 4 weight yarn will be fine for this headband. All right. You will need circular knitting needles. Okay. I use the short needles. And if you measure from point to point of the knitting needles, give me just a second. It measures about 16 inches. Now, if you do just the cord, that measures about 10.5 inches. So that's the size circular that I'm using. And it's 5 millimeter, the size of the needles. All right, you will need scissors. You will need a darning needle. And you will need a stitch marker to mark the beginning of the round. And this pattern, it is a beginner pattern. If you know how to knit stitch and you know how to do the purl stitch, you can make this headband. I will walk you through everything step by step. So let's get started. Okay, we are going to be casting on 80 stitches. So what you want to do is you take your yarn, you want to leave a 6-inch tail automatically. This is to weave your ends in. And I'm pinching about that length here. All right, now we take our 5 millimeter knitting needle and we just lay the yarn on top like this. And we're going to wrap it 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so I'm going to put my finger about here and pinch it. And this is enough to cast on 10 stitches. But we need 80. So I'm going to fold this in half. And this will get us to about 20 stitches. Then we fold it again. And this is 30. 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80. All right, so I'm going to pinch it about right here. And this is where we're going to put our slip knot. Okay, so now you want to make your slip knot. And remember, we got to leave all that yarn for that tail. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap what's connected to the skein on top like this. Pinch it. Take what's connected to the skein and pull it through the loop like this. And we just tighten it like that. Stick your knitting needle in and tighten. All right, your slip stitch counts as your first cast on stitch. All right, so the way you want your yarn positioned is what's connected to your skein of yarn is on top. Your tail is on the bottom. Okay, so we're going to grab what's connected to the skein like this. Take your bottom two fingers and grab the tail. Now, take your thumb and wrap it around the tail like this. And now we're going to start the long tail cast on. Take your needle, go all the way past the tail and scoop up the tail. Now you move all the way the opposite direction and you're going to scoop up what's connected to the skein of yarn like that. Now move through the loop, release the loop, and tighten. And I'm going to do it one more time slow. If you need more practice, I do have a tutorial on the long tail cast on method. All right, get back in position, scoop up that tail piece, bring it all the way past what's connected to your skein of yarn, scoop up that piece, go through the loop, release the loop, and tighten. Okay? So let's continue to cast on. We're casting on 80 stitches. Okay. All right. Just continue to cast on until you have 80 stitches. And remember, that includes that slip knot. So right now I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. And we'll meet back up once you have 80 stitches on your needle. Okay, you should now have 80 stitches on your knitting needles. And that, like I said, that includes that slip stitch you did. So just count to make sure there's 80 stitches. And now we're going to put all our stitches facing the inside. You see how I have everything? You want it all facing the inside. You don't want this. Because if it's twisted, it's going to twist everything and it's going to become a problem. So make sure everything is facing the inside. Very crucial, because we are now connecting the headband. All right, so what you do is you go into that first stitch like a knit stitch. You grab both of your tails, what's connected to your skein of yarn and your end piece, and you finish that knit stitch. And it basically looks like you have 2 stitches right here. And what you want to do is take your stitch marker and go through those 2 loops like this. And that marks the beginning of the round. All right. So from this point forward, make sure you're using what's connected to your skein of yarn. All right. So for round 1, we're just going to do the knit stitch all the way around. All right. And for the knit stitch, if you've never done it, you go in like an X. And you see how my needles are? Your right needle is underneath your left needle. Like this, like a crisscross. All right. Take your yarn connected to the skein, wrap it around your right needle. And then move your left stitch up like this and knock the stitch off. And we're going to do that again. Go through like an X, wrap your yarn, pull this up like that, knock the stitch off. And that's all there is to the knit stitch. All right, and just keep going all the way around. We're doing this headband in the broken rib stitch, which is a 2-row repeat. And the first row is knit stitch all the way around. All right, and we'll meet back up once you do that last stitch right before the stitch marker. We'll meet back up there. Okay, we just finished round 1. All right, so what you want to do is remove your stitch marker. And we're going to place it right here. All right, for round 2, we're going to be doing knit 1, purl 1. And we're going to do that all the way around. Okay, all right. Since we're dealing with that first stitch where we connect it to work in the round, and remember, it has 2 loops. Make sure you go through both those loops, like we're going to knit into it. And make sure you pull your end piece tight. And you just knit it. And again, pull that end piece. Now we're going to do a purl stitch into the next stitch. So put your yarn in the front. Remember, with a purl stitch, that yarn always goes in front. And this, for the purl stitch, you work like this. You see how the yarn's in front, that right needle goes in like this. You wrap around and you go through like this. And then you release the stitch off the needle. All right. Now we're going back to the knit stitch so that yarn goes in the back. Remember, knit stitch, the yarn is in the back. Purl stitch, the yarn is in the front. And this is going to give you lots of practice with that. All right, so now we're doing the knit stitch. Now it's time for the purl stitch. Bring that yarn to the front. Take your right needle, go in like this. You see how it is? Wrap it around your right needle. And then take that stitch off the left needle. All right, back to knit stitch. Purl stitch, yarn in front. And again, you go in like this. Wrap it around your right needle. Pull your right needle through. And take the stitch off your left needle. Now you're going back to a knit stitch. And a purl stitch, yarn in front. Knit stitch, yarn in the back. Purl stitch, yarn in the front. Knit stitch, yarn in the back. Purl stitch, yarn in the front. And I do have tutorials on the knit and purl stitch. They are older tutorials where I had a camera that wasn't as good of quality. So if you need more practice, you can use those tutorials. I will be redoing those tutorials soon. So be on the lookout for those tutorials when they do come out. But yeah, just keep doing knit one, purl one all the way around. And remember, with the knit stitch, the yarn is in the back. Purl stitch, you go to the front. And we'll meet back up right before the stitch marker. Okay, we have finished round 2. And like I said, round 1 and round 2 are your repeat rounds. We're just going to keep repeating that. All right, so we're going to slip our stitch marker. And for round 3, we're just going to be knitting. The same thing we did on round 1. And we just knit stitch all the way around. And we'll meet back up right before the stitch marker. Okay, we have finished round 3. So for round 4, we're going to be doing the same exact thing that we did for round 2. So let's slip that stitch marker and we're going to knit stitch in that first stitch. Remember, yarn in the back. Next stitch is a purl stitch, yarn in the front. The knit stitch, yarn in back. Purl stitch, yarn in front. And we just keep going all the way around. Knit stitch, yarn in back. Doing knit stitch, purl stitch. Purl stitch, yarn in front. All right, so just keep doing knit stitch, purl stitch all the way around, and we'll meet back up at the stitch marker. Okay, after you finish round 4, you will be doing the repeat rows, those 2 rows that we've been repeating. You'll do that 4 more times. So after round 4, you have 8 more rounds to do. So you'll have a total of 12 rounds, like what you see here. And we're going to meet back up once you have 12 rounds. Okay, so now we are going to cast off our headband. All right, so I'm going to remove the stitch marker. And the way we cast off, we knit 2 stitches. 1 and 2. All right, that first stitch that you knitted, the one right here, you want to pick it up like what I just did, and we're going to take it over the other stitch. Okay? And now you want to do another knit stitch. All right, take that stitch right here, the second one going down on your hook. You pick it up and you just pull it over the other stitch. All right, knit another stitch. The stitch below it, you pick it up and pull it over. Knit 1 more stitch. Take that first stitch, the one at the bottom, pull it over, the one that you just stitched. And we're just going to keep doing this all the way around. Knit a stitch. Take that bottom stitch, pull it over the stitch you just knitted. Knit another stitch. Take that bottom stitch and go over the stitch you just knitted. Knit a stitch. Take that bottom stitch, pull it over the stitch you just knitted. Knit a stitch. Take that bottom stitch, pull it over. Knit a stitch. Take that bottom stitch and pull it over. All right, keep going all the way around, and you'll have one stitch left. And I'll show you what we do at that point. Okay, we're going to go ahead and work that last one together. So knit stitch and pull this bottom stitch over. It's being ornery. All right, so you have that one stitch left. So you want to cut your yarn, and remember, leave a long enough tail to weave in your end, and just pull that tail through that last stitch like this. All right, so now we're going to weave in our end. So let's turn it inside out. Take your darning needle and let's thread our yarn. Okay. Let me trim this a little bit. Since mine got frayed. Okay, finally. All right, so we're just gonna go through some stitches here. And we're just gonna go through some stitches. Now we're going to go in the opposite direction. And my needle fell out. All right, now I'm going to go back in the original direction. All right, that should be good. And we're going to cut that yarn. Now we're going to weave in the other end down here. Again, let's thread our needle. And we're going to go through some stitches. All right. Let's go in the opposite direction now. And let's go back in the original direction. And let's cut our end piece. And we are finished. Okay, and this is the finished headband. So I hope y'all enjoyed today's tutorial. And let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. Also, if you make this headband, I would love it if you sent a picture to me. You can email your pictures to justanotherstitch2020@gmail.com. So I hope you're having a fabulous yarny day. Bye, everyone.